think it's a good way to start talking about the house by playing the piano a little bit. This piano has been an important part of our life here in this house, and it's been an important part of this room. It actually started off in my grandparents' house on Park Street, and I can remember my grandmother and grandfather sitting on this bench, sitting next to each other, playing duets, and so many nights being down there. My cousin Bobby and Doris, my brother and I, and my mother and father, and just sitting, singing. And very often I heard this story about how they used to make up, my grandparents and their friends used to make up operas, and they just give people different parts to sing and different things to do. And sounded like they had a lot of fun doing that, but I can remember so many wonderful times out at my grandparents' house and in this house with the music, playing the piano, and I can remember Christmas time. It's a tradition. I still remember it like it was yesterday. My grandmother and grandfather singing "I Wish You a Merry Christmas." It's just like that, in a sense, was Christmas Eve. That's when that was sung. That was like Christmas Eve was really happening. Remember, there was this chair that's now in the corner where the television used to be. It used to be over near the piano, and I can remember that chair and another chair where Doris, my father, and my mother, and then sometimes sit and watch television. And this living room, and the couch, and almost picture my Aunt Doris sitting here watching the soap operas with my mother. And she would come down here really daily. She was a very important part of our life. Right here between the two rooms, it was so much fun when we had our dog Tiny. It's kind of, well, it wasn't a mistake that we named her Tiny. We named her Tiny because she was so big and heavy. Not really a big dog, but a heavy dog. We got Tiny down at the bar down the street, the White Elephant, and that dog lived from the time I was in first grade till after I was teaching school. And it was always a battle of wills between my mother and that dog, Tiny. Tiny would lay in the dining room and knew that she wasn't allowed to go in the living room. She would just move her paw just to put one nail. One of her nails would go into the living room. And my mother would make eye contact with the dog, and Tiny would pull the foot right back. The second my mother wasn't looking, the dog would put the foot right back where it didn't belong. Trying to think of some of the other things that happened in this room. I remember one time we had wallpaper on the wall, and my mother and father didn't realize till they went to take it down to put new wallpaper up that one of the strips had been put on upside down, but no one ever seemed to notice it while it was like that. In the later years, I can remember so many days when Richie would be sitting here with my mother. They'd be sitting watching television. They were such a good help to one another. My mom helped Richie in his time of need when Camilla died, and God love Richie. He stuck by my mother really to the end of his life. He sat here with her at night, watched television. Very kind to her. I remember when, right after our dad died in 1984, my brother and I came over to the house, and we put new wallpaper up in the house, and we redid the bathroom. And it was a hard job to do because the wallpaper wouldn't stay up very good because the paper underneath it and the walls underneath it weren't in that good shape. And as much as we tried to do a good job, my mother kept trying to get us to leave because she felt we should be home with our own families, and she didn't want to spend a lot of time in her house because she felt she'd rather have us be where we belong, which wasn't here. So I would say about a couple years after we did it, my mother asked me very nonchalantly one day, she said, "Oh, by the way, what kind of nails are the proper nails to use when you put wallpaper up?" And I said, "Ma," I said, "what are you talking about? We can't put the wallpaper up with nails. That would look terrible." And she says, "Well," she says, "with these stairs," and that's what I'm looking at right now, she said, "these stairs," she says, "all my friends are too old to climb up them. And the few that can get to the top," she said, "if they have to go up there to go to the bathroom," she says, "they would never notice a couple of nails in the wallpaper." And I suppose she was right. I think my parents really always thought this was pretty nice, the way the railing looked on their stairs. Took pride in their house. They lived in it a long time. They lived in it before I was born in 1942, right up till my dad died in 1984, and then my mom left the house about, I suppose, almost 2 years ago now. And I was just very young. This room was quite different. You're looking at an open doorway here, an archway. That had been a closed door. And the hallway, you see that lamp right now, was part of a big room. It was like a big front porch. Later on, it was partitioned into a hallway and what was my bedroom for quite a few years as I got older. As you can see now, it's was a room where my mom would take care of her paperwork and things like that. She'd have her sewing machine out here. There was one funny thing years ago when we had our dog Tiny, and there was a mouse out here when the wall wasn't here. It was one big room. And my mother, I guess, felt that if we had a dog, it should have a purpose. So the mouse was running around out in this porch, and my mom decided to put the dog out to catch it. Well, our dog was not the bravest dog that ever lived, I guess. And Tiny was probably running away from the mouse, but the two of them were running around out here in circles, and suddenly our dog slipped, fell on the mouse, killed the mouse by crushing it. I can also remember when this was a porch. I can remember my grandparents being out here. I don't know why this memory sticks in my mind so strongly, but it does, that they were out here eating pig's feet. And I remember them offering them to me, and I wasn't very interested in it. I didn't try it. When they were here, it was always fun. We had very good times in this house. We were very lucky as a family. The room looks so small to me now. I'm sure it's no smaller than it was, but sure. Sure looks little now to me. While I'm in this room, I'd like to just take a picture of the new ceiling that we just had put in here. I think Bobby Cease's son, Frankie, installed it. I think he did a good job. The room that I'm in now is the dining room. Of course, it doesn't look like a dining room anymore because all the dining room furniture is at our son David's house, apartment. It's nice there. Remember some great meals in this room. Remember some fun times with my Aunt Doris and Uncle Vince and Norman and Henrietta. We have one funny story we always remember. My mom with some Jell-O. Then he asked for Jell-O or from whipped cream, I guess it was, on the Jell-O, and it kind of got sprayed all over our Danny. We had fun here. We had some good meals. My mom was a good cook. This next room is our kitchen, my mother's kitchen. That's the door to go down to the basement. They redid this kitchen when I was in the Air Force. In basic training, that would have been 1966. My mom always took pride in the cabinets. They really do look good. They lasted well. They held up well. Took care of the things she had. Unfortunately, it's been not taken care of since she isn't in the house, but it always looked pretty. My mother and Richie put this floor down. They weren't overly concerned about how the pattern went together, but they were happy with what they had done. They were very proud of it. They were good for each other. When I look at the stove, I can remember my mom making supper for me, and when I had spaghetti, I would want it without any sauce. I'd have to put butter on it. I remember her making egged again for us, which was great to eat. And I remember when she made meat for a steak, she would have to cut it up and burn it in the frying pan for me before I could eat it. I've learned to appreciate it better since then. My dad worked so hard. He worked on Saturdays. He would work. They both worked 2 jobs for a long time. But my father would work at American Cyanamid, a regular shift. And a couple nights a week he'd work at what was called the old bank building. It was a factory. And then on Saturdays he would work delivering meat orders for Fusco Meat Market, which was Ernie Manzella's business. And for doing that, he would get the meat that we needed to eat. And he was always proud of the fact that we ate so much good meat. He was able to provide that for us. My mother worked at Shahul's agency, and also for many years was the welfare director. When I look at our back kitchen here, I remember so many arguments between my brother and I. It wasn't this table, but it was another table. It's a yellow table with 2 yellow bench seats. And we used to argue over where the middle of the table was so we could know where to put how far we could extend our arms while we were eating. There was actually a mark on the table that my mother put there finally just to settle the argument. I remember we were sitting back here, my mother and my brother and I, the night that we found out that my grandmother in Antwerp, had passed away. My father got up and answered the phone. We were all sitting here together and kind of stunned by the fact that she had passed away. We knew she was sick, and we knew she was going to die, but it was just a memory I have in this room. We had a lot of good meals in this room, a lot of fun, actually. And I think this room and the dining room is pretty much when I think of my own children, my wife and our sons, Danny and David. We'd come here, my mother would make snack for them, or lots of times she would make cold cuts in the dining room. There's always a nice atmosphere here. I'm back in the front room of the house, and I came back in here because when I was in the kitchen talking about my mother and father both working 2 jobs, and there were so many days when my mother would come home from work, and we would have people in town who were on welfare, and they'd be sitting in our house. They'd be sitting over here. There was a bench over here on this side of the wall. There was no wall here then, but there would be a bench, and they'd be sitting here, and there was a door here that is now not there any longer, and we'd be in our house doing our homework, and they would be sitting right along here waiting for my mother to come in. And she took great pride in helping the people. She had some innovative ideas. One of them she tried didn't work because it was illegal, but she tried it. She wanted the people to only be able to use their vouchers at certain stores specifically where you couldn't buy liquor, because she felt it was very annoying to her to know that people weren't buying food for their children but were buying liquor for themselves. And she wasn't able to get that carried through, but she did a lot of work with not with the Red Cross, but the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army was very helpful to my mother while she had this job. I'm back in the dining room, back in here, because when I was thinking of doors that had been on the house and then no longer here, there was actually a door between the dining room and the kitchen. And I know because when I was studying in that back kitchen, I used to have this door closed because unlike Danny, I wasn't able to study unless it was completely quiet. I can remember being in there and closing the door so that I wouldn't have to hear the noise from the television. It was a good place to study. It was kind of secluded from the rest of the house.